Hi, everybody. Mitch Tanbem here. Thanks for joining me today for this week's security news update. And this is kind of old news, but when I wrote it, it wasn't old. In the security and privacy alerts, our defense secretary apparently doesn't understand that commercial consumer grade messaging apps are not appropriate for discussing either war plans or attack plans, whatever you want to call them, whether you choose to say they're classified or not. Others on the chat who maybe also should have known were the vice president, CIA, the director of national intelligence, secretary of state. All these people in theory should have told him, hey, Pete, not a good plan here, likely illegal. Now, he's not going to face any consequences of that, unlike, the poor private who might do the same thing, or sergeant or whatever. We're going to give him a pass because, I don't know, he was a talking head on an entertainment show before he became the Secretary of Defense. So, dual standard of justice, not a big surprise here, but still, I don't think he'll do that again. And the only reason this came out was because there was a person on the chat that wasn't supposed to be on the chat that happened to be a reporter and editor of The Atlantic, and he outed them. If it weren't for that, then we'd never know that they did that. Now, how many times a week does this kind of thing happen? You don't know. China has made a big splash of a new piece of hardware that they built. It is a cable cutter. They say it's designed to be used for underwater salvage. We're kind of saying, well, it depends what you want to salvage. If you want to cut up fiber optic cables and bring them up to the surface, and maybe that might be your definition of salvage. That might not be their definition of salvage. But it's a diamond covered. It's got totally submersible, blah, blah, blah. And it could cut through most of these underwater cables that we've seen recently have been involved. So rather than snagging them with a boat anchor, you just take this little robot down there, you go zip, zip, cut the cable, and the robot goes away. In the CMMC department, I focus on one. You see this a lot. Software vendors say, well, we're running in a FedRAMP environment, and so therefore that makes us FedRAMP. Well, no, it actually doesn't. It makes your environment FedRAMP. It doesn't make you FedRAMP. If you have questions about that, please talk to us before you make any decisions, because you could wind up actually failing your certification as a result of that. In the software and hardware department to check out, there's a piece of software from Chris Titus Tech, which I kind of like. I don't know this guy personally, so I think you need to vet it out to whatever degree you're comfortable with. It's kind of a Swiss Army knife of how you set up new systems. You install this piece of software on the system, runs inside a PowerShell, and it'll install whatever you want. Browsers, it'll debloat the system, does all kinds of nifty stuff. So check it out, Chris Titus Tech. In the legislative and legal departments, the president wants Congress to pass something called the Take It Down Act. The intent of Congress, I think, was to go off and give people who are the victims of deep fake or non-consensual intimate imagery. That's a new term, nudes basically. A way to get their stuff taken down. But the bill is so badly written, as is often the case with congressional stuff. And it could be used for any number of things. The president has already said that he plans to use it to take down stuff he doesn't like. That's not Congress's intent. It's already passed the Senate. I assume the House will rubber stamp it. It'll become the law. And then it's going to wind up going into the courts. Now, what's going to happen, you're going to piss somebody off. They're going to go off and file a takedown notice. There is no consequences for them filing a totally bogus takedown notice. Content hosters do not want to get in the middle of lawsuits. I don't care who you are, unless you're making them $1 bazillion a year. So they're just going to take your content down. And, if that happens a couple times, they'll, disable your account. If you're running a virtual server, on their cloud. They may just shut down your server. It's really kind of a, what the idea obviously here is to chill speech, at least on the part of the president. That's not the intent of Congress. Whether they clean up the language, send it back to the Senate, I don't know. Not counting on that though. The feds have lifted the ban on Tornado Cash. That is a tool that North Korea has used to launder billions and billions of dollars of cryptocurrency. What you do is you stick everything into this blender, and it makes it hard to figure out where the cash came from in the first place. Um, it was banned. The court said the ban was illegal for some sort of nuanced legal theory, which is probably technically correct. But Treasury says they're concerned about it, but court said you can't ban it. So now North Korea says thank you very much to the Supreme Court, and of course the Supreme Court, there's a bunch of octogenarians for the most part. A couple of younger people who may actually know how to use a computer and may understand what cryptocurrency is, but probably not. The feds, in one very tiny little win, recovered $7 billion that would be really nice if that happened. $7 million of cryptocurrency. The Eastern District of Virginia, the U.S. Attorney is the one who ran the case. The money had apparently already been converted to cash, and it was stashed in a foreign bank that has some U.S. activity. So they were able to convince the bank, saying, if you'd like to stay in the U.S., you kind of give us the money. So the bank said, sure, not a problem. And they gave up the money, and now the victims can petition to get their cash back, which is kind of cool. Under education, the Shawnee Delaney is a former Defense Intelligence Agency spy and spy handler that I follow. She is now in the corporate world as a security consultant, particularly in insider threat, which of course was her business as a spy handler, which was to recruit insiders to tattle on, hopefully, in her case, unfriendly governments. But she says, and I think this is really true, and she probably knows a lot more than she can say, that AI-powered tools like deepfakes, corporate espionage, insider threats, phishing, spear phishing, hacking, supply chain attacks are now common amongst threat actors, and I've heard this before. And what used to take hackers months to set up, to plan, to create, now they can do it in minutes or seconds. And the question is, is your company ready to go off and meet that challenge? But that's, where that is going to hit is your employees. They've got to be ready for these kind of attacks. And I would say for a lot of companies, that's not the case. For some it is, but for a lot it's not. In the breaches department, wheelchair firm NewMotion, who is one of the largest providers of wheelchairs, is notifying about 500,000 people that their data was stolen. The hack started on last September, and they notified federal regulators in March. And of course, they're facing 5 proposed class action lawsuits claiming negligence. I don't know. Were they negligent? Could be. Don't know. In the negligence question, Oracle is denying that they were breached, while customers are confirming that the data that was breached is theirs. So we'll see. I think Oracle will come around. At this point, the lawyers are trying to buy their time, and hopefully this goes away, but it won't go away. That's not going to happen. The hackers also said that the so-called encrypted passwords could be decrypted, and that was along with all the other data that was stolen. It could affect 140,000 Oracle customer companies, not users, but companies. So, if it's probably not the case, IBM, who's a direct competitor, I just picked somebody. IBM is one of those 140,000 Oracle customers. That means that all of IBM stuff would be included. As I said, I doubt IBM's a customer, but since they make directly competing products, but who knows? There is a bill going on right now in the California Assembly Bill 412, that would require AI tools to document what copyrighted works they're stealing. Needless to say, the new school content uh, scrapers don't like that, and the old school Hollywood actors do like that, and not only actors but other folks as well who create content and who feel that they're being ripped off by AI. But the AI guys say, well, if we can't steal your stuff, then how do we make our software work? Well, you pay people. That's what you do. Eventually, they'll all settle out. But right now, it's a free for all, and right now, I think the AI guys are winning. Hackers defaced the NYU, New York University website. In the process of doing this, they exposed data on millions of former and current students and applicants. What they're trying to prove is a bias on admissions on the part of NYU. So they created some graphs. The graphs were tied to data. All of that was publicly exposed because they had hacked NYU. They claimed that they had anonymized the data. The truth is they had not anonymized the data, or certainly not well enough. And as a result, data on about 3 million students dating back to at least 1989. The question is, what the hell is data going back to 1989 spinning around on the web for? Well, that's because why not? Storage is cheap. So we'll go do that. That is the downside of keeping around data forever. If you are hacked, the cost of the breach goes up dramatically. And lastly, in the news bites, the U.S. National Security Advisor, who was also on that call that I talked about before, and people started looking at all the other places where they were leaving breadcrumbs behind. And apparently, they found all kinds of stuff for any number of people, including Venmo, friends, and email addresses and phone numbers and all kinds of stuff. None of that was classified, unlike the text chat, but nonetheless, not very good operational security. The conspiracy theorists, and you notice that I am not wearing a tinfoil hat today, are asking/wondering if Russia was behind the Heathrow fire and resultant shutdown. There's no particular evidence that they were, but it certainly is a tactic that they might use. I think the Heathrow fire certainly exposed really, really poor operational resilience on the part of the airport. But maybe the Russians knew that, and they said, "Well, this is a way to go embarrass the hell out of the UK for supporting Ukraine." I don't know. U.S. senators are pushing Trump for details on TikTok, on a supposed deal that might happen. There's an April 5th deadline. In theory, if this was normal times, which is not, the president would have to go back to Congress and say, please pass a bill that would extend the deadline for the sale. But these are not normal times. He may just extend it and see whether anybody sues him. Not clear what the Googles and Apples of the world might do, because him signing a bill or an executive order, which is probably a violation of law, could he come back later and say, I'm going to sue you, I'm going to prosecute you for breaking the law? Wouldn't put it past them. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens on April 5th. Not clear. And next, those private dating sites, especially the ones that they cater to sort of alternate lifestyles, about a half dozen of them got hacked with all the data and photos and all kinds of stuff. And so people who participate in those kind of sites probably are at some risk. And lastly, sanctioned entities, these are people that are not supposed to do this, fueled $16 billion in crypto activity. That's a lot of money. And obviously, a chunk of that is North Korea, a chunk of that is Russia. But that $16 billion that in theory should not have happened, but did anyway. If we can do anything to assist you, please contact us. And no matter what, until next time, stay safe. Thanks for listening.